I'm not a reflective or sentimental person, but I can't help but actually reflect upon the fact that this is year 5 and we've moved up to new space. And thinking back to the times before we started Cantech, and it was, the years between 2009, 2011, we actually wanted to do a conference that would be all about technology. And we waited because the timing wasn't right. And I don't know if anybody remembers that time in the markets, but technology was absolutely nowhere at the time. Mining was everything. And there was actually a term going around called the commodities supercycle, if anybody remembers that term, which was basically a BS term for we need this to last a couple more years of banking fees. And so when we started Cantech in year 1, we wanted to make a splash, so we decided we're going to go with the convention center. And typically at the time, a lot of conferences were put on by banks, so not everyone could go. You could go to a show, but not a lot of your friends could go. So the idea was to be Switzerland and have everybody come into a tech show. And when we did our first year, we did 400 people, I think, showed up. And we couldn't believe that 400 people in the capital markets in Toronto showed up for a technology show. And we had Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, show up, and it was a huge success. And today we're going to have 4,000 to 5,000 people come through here. And it's amazing the progress that we've made. Really, when I started Cantech, I thought this is going to be a reversion to the mean story. This is going to be, we are less than 1% of the entire exchange for technology. What happens if we go to 10%? What happens, maybe we can get to 5%. There'll be a lot of money to be made. There'll be a lot of good stories that were completely undervalued at the time that are going to double and triple. Well, I think tech has been the top performing sector on the exchange. I see Michael Cousset from the TSX there. Tech has been the top performing sector on the exchange for multiple years in a row now, and this year it's hotter than ever. So when we were thinking, well, we'll go from 1.5 or 2% of the overall exchange to 10%, now I look around and I wonder why our ambitions were so low. I think that we should aim higher, and we are. And to kind of bring it back to that time, 2009 through 2011, when a lot of things were in flux, I want to welcome a contingent here from Waterloo and congratulate BlackBerry for being named as the 2017 Canadian Tech Stock of the Year. So please give them a big hand. I always remember to thank our sponsors, or I always forget to thank our sponsors, so I'm not going to do that this year. I want to thank DLA Piper, I want to thank the TSX, and I want to thank Haywood Securities. They do a great job setting up a ton of meetings for us and helping out in a lot of ways. A couple of housekeeping issues. We have at our coat check, it's by donation. It's a charity called Daily Bread. It's a food bank. It's a really great charity. Food banks are really simple ideas and really important things for a community. I've pledged $200, and I want to challenge other companies and other people here to match that. I think we should make their day and have them raise a lot of money for the food banks here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up our MC for the day, Mr. Michael Hainsworth, who you all know from BNN. And Michael's going to talk for a bit. And what we're going to do is, this is the second year in a row, we're going to open the Toronto Stock Exchange. We do a remote open, so we don't have to go to them anymore. We're going to be opening the stock exchange. And after that, we're going to set the conference up, and we're going to get rolling. So I want to bring up Michael Hainsworth from BNN as our MC.
Thank you, Nick. Great stuff. Nice to have them come to you like the Toronto Stock Exchange is now doing, right? Absolutely. I am the product of hippies. And so I got to tell you, nothing surprised me more than to find myself almost every single day talking about cannabis. I remember my dad calling me, Michael, could you go get my tin of wacky tobacco? And I asked him recently, I said, so what's it feel like to know that, for crying out loud, this stuff's going to be legal, and there's going to be so much beyond that. It absolutely blows his mind. And today we are going to be learning so much more about what's next, how we can maintain that lead in Canada, as we have remarkably been a leader. And surprisingly, my father has had very little to do with it, aside from the demand side of the equation. Healthcare is going to be a big topic of discussion here today, and not just the neurodegenerative diseases that we can resolve through research and technology, but how technology plays a role in that, artificial intelligence, things of that nature. Blockchain, we think about it as Bitcoin, but of course it's so much more than just that. And we'll be having conversations today that suggest this will be the underpinning for Web 3.0. We knew Web 1.0 is the hypertext markup language and TCP/IP. Web 2.0 is that interactivity. But blockchain is something that at some point you're not even know is actively involved in your day-to-day life. And we're going to learn a lot today about how that works and who's doing it. Robotics, a key component to the show here as well. Financial technology, fintech, was certainly something that we spent a lot of time talking about last year, and we'll certainly be spending a lot more time talking about it as blockchain plays a role in that as well. And then you'll probably find me nerding out in the far corner over here because artificial intelligence is second to me behind only augmented reality, virtual reality. AR and VR is huge. If you go into my family room, my basement family room, I actually have managed to install the sensors for Oculus Rift embedded in the walls so that when you come to my house, it doesn't look like a Best Buy blew up. And so there are some really interesting things that Canada is doing in that respect. So with all of that, we really appreciate your time here today, learning about so much of what Canada has to offer, and perhaps even opening up your wallets in one way, shape, or form over the course of the conference here today as well. So what we're going to do, as Nick had pointed out, is we're going to open the Toronto Stock Exchange for the second year in a row. We're going to turn things over to Michael Cusay, who's going to be able to shepherd us through that whole process as it stands. It's amazing to me. I came back from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas with an iPhone and a 3-axis gimbal as my machine, and I was broadcasting live from the floor of CES. And I thought, there was a time when this would have taken a satellite truck, a crew of 7 or 8, and a lot more than just a guy with a phone. Michael Cusay is a guy with a microphone and a remote line that gets us all the way back to the Toronto Stock Exchange. So ladies and gentlemen, let's turn it over to him right now.
All right, good morning, everyone. We want this to be a market open ceremony for every single person here to take part in. You can see the countdown clock behind me. This indicates how long we've got to get things going. So gradually over the next 5 minutes, we want all of you to take part in this. The first row is going to be reserved for the team from Research in Motion, BlackBerry, for being the Cantech 2017 winner. And then we're going to invite everyone else to join the celebration here. The reason for us bringing tech to, the TSX to the tech conference here is because every single person represented in this room, every single person represented at this conference has something to do with the amazing success that's going on in the tech sector in Canada today. Nick mentioned in his opening remarks that the sector in Canada on TSX has been the fastest growing for the last several years. That continued in 2017. What he didn't mention is also the fact that we have seen an unbelievable amount of funding going into some phenomenal private companies, being backed by some of the biggest VCs in Canada, in the US, and around the world. And that success is creating the next generation of amazing billion-dollar private companies in this country that at some point may become public companies. And so, as I said a moment ago, every single person who's part of this conference is part of that success, and that's why we're here today. I want to just put a slightly finer point on that. If you are a company, you're part of this success. If you're one of the 50 public companies that are involved in today's conference, whether you are companies that have been public for 20 years, as some of them are, or companies that have been public for 20 days, as some of the presenters today are, you are part of that success. We actually yesterday welcomed a company to the exchange, been public for 20 days. They're going to be presenting today. And as I said, there's several others of those. So all of the companies, the public ones, are part of the success that's going on in Canadian tech. Today at the conference, there's about 30 private companies presenting. All of you are part of the phenomenal success that we've seen in Canadian tech. Whether you're the startups building a business in your parents' basement, whether you're the more mature growth stage companies, companies like Mobify, companies like Lightspeed, Vidyard, Wattpad, all of those who are presenting today at different stages, these are some of the companies I alluded to that are raising or have raised collectively hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars as they're building amazing businesses. You're all part of the success, and that's why we want to bring this to you. We also look at the investors. This is an investor conference, of course. And so we've got investors represented here from retail individuals, angels, family offices, and large global institutional asset managers. All of you are part of the success. If you're investing in private companies and are looking for the next exciting generation of companies, be sure to check out the artificial intelligence businesses, the VR and AR companies that are here as well. Some really neat companies that need funding. If you're part of the investor class that's investing in public companies and like small cap, well done to you for supporting some of these emerging businesses on our markets. The blockchain companies that are coming to our markets. Currently we've got, I think, 7 blockchain companies listed on our exchange, and many of you know that there are about 10 or 15 others that have announced in the last little while their plans at some point to go public. Also for the large cap investors, there are some great and happy large cap investors in this room, I hope, because anyone who's been tracking the performance of the TSX, S&P TSX Technology Index, which is the core index that tracks the 20 largest companies in our market, including BlackBerry, Shopify, and 18 others, will know that that index has outperformed the broad Canadian tech index, broad Canadian composite for the last 1 year, the last 3 years, the last 5 years, and the last 10 years. And so there's a lot of money being made by investors in the large cap side of things as well, which we're very appreciative of. I'm going to pause for 1 second here because we need to start slowly gathering people. And so please start to form your way around the podium. Everyone come on in. Everyone come on in. I'm going to continue speaking for a couple minutes, but keep gathering in here. While people are gathering, I also want to point out and recognize one final critical group to this entire ecosystem, which is the core group of advisors, whether it's the investment banks, the IR advisors, the legal advisors, or the accounting advisors. All of you are taking a bet on what's going on in building these companies. And so every one of you deserves to be applauded as well. As I look forward on what's happening in the tech sector, we're obviously super excited by what we're seeing. We're seeing this amazing generation of companies in our markets growing. We're seeing this amazing generation of private companies. And I can tell you, I get the privilege of traveling the world. I get to go to Silicon Valley where some of the best businesses are being built. And I get to hear Silicon Valley venture capital funds praising what's happening in Canada. I get to hear investors from Europe talking about the amazing ecosystem that's being built in Canada. And I get to hear about the exciting things that people are doing and looking at in Canada. And so we want to make sure that in 90 seconds, as we're going to open the market, people are recognizing how awesome things are right now in Canadian tech. Keep gathering in, guys. All of you who are sitting down, please go up on the stage and join this. If we do this right, this will be the largest market open ceremony in history, not just in Canadian history, but possibly world history. So please join in. And with that, I'm now going to hand the microphone to my colleague, Quinn, who's going to give everyone some final instructions on what needs to be done over the last 60 seconds here to make this happen.
Thank you, Michael. So just going to need everybody to squeeze in a little bit more here, okay? And this, I know you guys are a little tight over there. That's okay. So when this, actually very soon, we're going to start clapping, okay? So the whole group, everybody start clapping for us. We're going to start counting backwards down to 1 as well. At 1, that's when you guys reach in and push that button. Push it down. It'll be like spring-loaded. Make sure you let go. It'll turn green. Siren will go off, and the market will be open, okay? Ton of energy. Keep going until we say stop. I got the guy that's back in the studio that's going to call me when we're off air, okay? So let's start clapping now, everybody.